There are giants that stand outside a man, and there are giants that stand inside a man. The giants outside are easy to identify. We can point at poverty, sickness, oppression, injustice, corruption, persecution, and spiritual warfare. We can see them. We can name them. We can pray against them. But the giants inside us are more dangerous because they wear our face, speak with our voice, and often convince us they are our friends. Of all the giants that have ever walked through the pages of Scripture, perhaps none is more destructive than the giant called pride. Pride is responsible for more fallen kings than poverty. It has destroyed more ministries than persecution. It has ruined more marriages than financial problems. It has broken more friendships than betrayal. It has caused more spiritual blindness than ignorance. The reason pride is so dangerous is because it rarely appears as pride. Pride is a master of disguise. Pride knows that if it came openly, most people would reject it. So it comes wearing another name. Sometimes it calls itself ambition. Sometimes it calls itself confidence. Sometimes it calls itself excellence. Sometimes it calls itself self-respect. Sometimes it calls itself influence. Sometimes it calls itself success. Sometimes it even calls itself ministry. Pride understands something that many believers do not understand. The most effective deception is not convincing someone to love evil. The most effective deception is convincing someone that evil is good. That is exactly what happened in heaven. Before there was a devil, there was an angel. Before there was darkness, there was beauty. Before there was rebellion, there was worship. The being we know as Satan was once glorious. He was not ugly. He was not weak. He was not insignificant. His downfall did not begin because he lacked something. His downfall began because he became fascinated with himself. The prophet Isaiah reveals the mystery behind his fall. The proud person may even appear humble externally. But internally, life revolves around self. What do people think of me? How do I look? Am I appreciated? Am I recognized? Am I admired? Am I respected? Am I successful enough? Am I important enough? Even insecurity can be a hidden form of pride because both pride and insecurity are obsessed with self. One says, I am better than everyone. The other says, everyone is better than me. Both are looking at the same person. Self. Humility stops staring at self and begins staring at God. One of the greatest tricks pride has played on modern society is convincing people that happiness comes from having more. The average person today possesses comforts that kings could not imagine hundreds of years ago. Many people have access to transportation, communication, medicine, entertainment, information, and conveniences that ancient rulers never possessed. Yet depression, anxiety, loneliness, and dissatisfaction continue to increase. Why? Because the human soul was not designed to be satisfied by possessions. The soul was designed to be satisfied by God. A man can possess everything and still feel empty. Another man can possess very little and sleep peacefully. The difference is not possessions. The difference is perspective. Modern culture constantly whispers, you are what you own. Scripture says, a man's life does not consist in the abundance of things which he possesses. The world teaches comparison. The kingdom teaches contentment. The world teaches self-promotion. The kingdom teaches self-denial. The world teaches platform building. The kingdom teaches cross-carrying. The world teaches becoming famous. The kingdom teaches becoming faithful. This is why pride has become harder to recognize in our generation. We live in a culture that rewards it. Entire industries survive by convincing people they are not enough. Not attractive enough. Not wealthy enough. Not successful enough. Not influential enough. Not educated enough. Not fashionable enough. The result is an endless cycle of striving. People are exhausted. Not because they are carrying God's burden. They are exhausted because they are carrying the burden of maintaining an image. Many people are not living for God. They are living for an audience. Even in ministry, pride can become astonishingly subtle. A preacher begins with a genuine burden for souls. He spends years praying, years studying, years serving. Then God begins to bless the work. The congregation grows. The invitations increase. The influence expands. The finances improve. The platform becomes larger. None of these things are evil. The danger is not growth. The danger is when the heart begins to feed on the attention that comes with growth. A minister may start counting souls and end up counting applause. He may begin by seeking God's approval and eventually become addicted to human approval. What started as ministry can slowly become performance. What started as worship can slowly become branding. What started as service can slowly become self-promotion. This is why some of the most frightening words in Scripture are found in the life of John the Baptist. He must increase, but I must decrease. That sentence is a sword against pride. The kingdom advances whenever Christ increases and self decreases. The kingdom suffers whenever self increases and Christ decreases. This is exactly why Jesus remains the greatest example of humility ever revealed. The one who created galaxies washed feet. The one who commanded angels served fishermen. The one who could raise the dead allowed himself to be mocked. The one who possessed all authority chose a cross. Every step of Christ's life was a declaration of war against pride. The world says climb higher. Jesus says go lower. The world says promote yourself. Jesus says deny yourself. The world says protect your reputation. Jesus says lose your life. The world says become great. Jesus says become a servant. This is why pride and the Spirit of Christ cannot comfortably coexist. One seeks a throne. The other carries a towel. One demands recognition. The other embraces service. One asks, "Who will serve me?" The other asks, "Whom can I serve?" When we examine the great falls of Scripture, pride appears repeatedly. The pride of Pharaoh caused him to resist God until Egypt was devastated. The pride of King Saul caused him to protect his image rather than obey God. The pride of Nebuchadnezzar caused him to boast over Babylon until God humbled him. The pride of Herod caused him to accept worship that belonged to God alone. The pride of the Pharisees blinded them to the Messiah standing directly in front of them. Each story teaches the same lesson. Pride blinds. The proud person does not merely have a problem. The proud person cannot see the problem. That is why pride is so difficult to kill. The drunkard knows he drinks. The thief knows he steals. But pride often convinces its victim that he is right. This is why one of the strongest signs of pride is an inability to receive correction. When correction feels like a personal attack, pride may be present. When we always need to defend ourselves, pride may be present. When we cannot celebrate another person's success, pride may be present. When we secretly enjoy being admired, pride may be present. When we constantly compare ourselves with others, pride may be present. When criticism destroys us and praise controls us, pride may be present. When we become offended because we were not recognized, pride may be present. The frightening reality is that pride can even disguise itself as spirituality. A person can become proud of prayer, proud of fasting, proud of holiness, proud of revelation, proud of theology, proud of spiritual gifts, proud of sacrifice, proud of humility itself. The Pharisees were experts in religion, yet they failed to recognize God because pride had built a wall around their hearts. Humility is not weakness. Humility is truth. Humility simply agrees with reality. Without God we can do nothing. Every breath is borrowed. Every gift is given. Every opportunity is granted. Every success is enabled by grace. Every achievement rests upon mercy. The humble person does not deny his abilities. He simply understands where they came from. One of the greatest ways to destroy pride is to regularly remember your dependence upon God. Remember how fragile life is. Remember how quickly circumstances can change. Remember how much of your story was shaped by grace rather than personal brilliance. Remember how many doors you could not have opened by yourself. Remember how many battles God fought that you never saw. Remember how many disasters He prevented without your knowledge. Pride shrinks when gratitude grows. This brings us to the practical battle. How do we overcome pride? First, ask God to reveal it. Most people do not need more information about pride. They need revelation of their own pride. Pray, Lord, show me where self is still sitting on the throne. Second, practice hidden obedience. Do good that nobody sees. Give without announcement. Serve without recognition. Pray without publicity. Learn to be content when God alone knows what you have done. Third, welcome correction. Do not merely tolerate correction. Value it. The people who challenge you may become greater blessings than the people who praise you. Fourth, celebrate others intentionally. Rejoice when others succeed. Bless those who are advancing. Pray for those who are prospering. Pride competes. Humility celebrates. Fifth, meditate often on the cross. At the cross, every human being stands on equal ground. The wealthy need grace. The poor need grace. The educated need grace. The uneducated need grace. The preacher needs grace. The listener needs grace. The cross destroys every reason for boasting. Finally, spend time beholding Christ. No strategy kills pride more effectively than seeing Jesus clearly. The more we see His holiness, the less impressed we become with ourselves. The more we see His sacrifice, the less entitled we become. The more we see His greatness, the more naturally humility grows. The final victory over pride is not achieved by trying harder to be humble. It is achieved by becoming captivated by Christ. When a person truly sees Jesus, pride begins to lose its voice. The giant becomes smaller. The throne of self begins to crumble. The hunger for applause begins to fade. The addiction to comparison begins to break. The obsession with status begins to weaken. And slowly, day by day, Christ increases while self decreases. That is the lifelong journey of every believer. Not becoming more famous. Not becoming more admired. Not becoming more important. But becoming more like Jesus. For in the end, the greatest tragedy is not to die poor. The greatest tragedy is to die proud. And the greatest victory is not gaining the whole world. The greatest victory is gaining a humble heart that belongs completely to God.